Hello, folks, and welcome back to the Pool Deck Podcast. So before we go any further, quick warning: everything that I say is my opinion from what I've seen and from what I've heard from different resources, from different articles, from just things that I've seen or heard. Take it with a grain of salt. And then what we're going to be talking about is an interesting topic. So today we're going to be talking about a more athletic side of things, which is different for this channel. Why Power 5 colleges should play more non-conference, so first of all, there's been a lot of talk in the SEC for years to cut out a non-conference game that's normally played against a weaker FCS level opponent and switch it out for a conference game. While this is not a bad idea, it'll be, be interesting for the SEC, it'll make more money, better fan experience. I don't think that they should do that. And here is why. So the SEC, schools in the SEC they make a bunch of money. SEC's got a huge contract. They honestly don't need more money. Will that stop them that they don't need more money? No. Conferences and colleges are always in pursuit of more money. However, those games, those non-conference games against weaker opponents, are good for the schools themselves. And a lot of times they're actually really good and fun for the fan, which is a little bit weird to say because, it's a weaker opponent, so hypothetically it shouldn't be better and stuff like that. But from my personal experience, I don't think so. So I have been to a couple of weaker non-conference football games myself, and one of the reasons I go to those is because they're more affordable to get in, and that's a big reason. And it's like, while the games themselves, maybe they're not always as intense, maybe there's not as much on the line, but at least I can now go see a football game my college can go play a football game. In this case, it's Nebraska Huskers. And I can now go see that football game. I don't need to pay $200 to go see Nebraska play Michigan. Now I can just go pay $50 to $100 and watch Nebraska go play Louisiana Tech. And while the game isn't as close, while it may not mean as much, I can go enjoy the experience, the atmosphere, the environment. And it's just a really good time. And I think it is good for a lot of fans and a lot of fan bases for them to have that option open to pay a little bit less. And now you can get these new fans in to go see a game. And I do think that it builds it builds more fan base support, because now you're getting new fans into the cycle, and it's not just the same old fans that are paying this much money. I could be totally wrong on this. Just remember, this is my opinion from what I've seen, what I've heard, what I've done. And I think that's a good thing, keeping that conference game now there's not going to be as much as ticket prices. You're not going to make as much from the media deal, but it's good. And I think the second reason why conferences should keep more non-conference games is because it helps the school that they're playing. And I think a good example of this is when Nebraska played University of Northern Iowa last year. Nebraska played University of Northern Iowa, and I think the numbers differ a little depending on where it goes, but the general thing was that it was we paid them about Nebraska played UNI about $600,000 to go play a football game. Now, $600,000 is a decent chunk of money, especially. I mean, it's not like a crazy amount for a college athletics department for some of the Power 5 ones, but it's still a decent amount. And it's big for a smaller school's budget. Now you've got a guaranteed $600,000. Now you're probably not going to win the game. Occasionally, like when Northern Illinois or Marshall goes and plays Notre Dame, then maybe you can pull out the dub. I think that, yeah. Northern Illinois is a bit bigger school than UNI, though. So there's no disrespect to any schools in this video. UNI's athletic budget is considered, the school, the athletics is considered smaller than, say, Nebraska's. And so that's a lot of money, and it's really helped boosts the budget for being able to do more sports and helping other athletes. And that's also why you see a lot of these smaller teams going and playing, which is why it's also why basketball teams play weaker opponents early in the year. You get the tune-up game, so it's good for the bigger basketball team. And now the smaller basketball team can have more money to go get nice things, and it helps their budget and all that. And it's really good for them. And so that's why you got to keep the non-conference games, is you're helping these schools with their budget and essentially just like giving them a boost, helping them up. And especially in this day and age where we've got NIL, probably going to have rev share, we've got all these sports, all these scholarships, all this money that you now got to shell out to keep or get players. Keeping that game is going to be really big for the UNIs and the Waterfords and the, I don't know what other teams that they play. But it's going to be really big for the schools, is now they've also got a budget they can spend on their football players. But another reason why that non-conference game is necessary is because it also helps other athletics grow. Every school, most schools, you've got your big earners. You've got football and basketball. In some places like Nebraska, you've got volleyball. Maybe in some places it's baseball or wrestling, or it just depends on what sport it is. And they've got these bunch of smaller sports that don't really make money. In fact, a lot of times you're losing money. Not a lot of money, but you are losing money. And it's big for those athletics to have that money and to be able to continue that budget growth. I'm a swimmer, and like these things, cutting a budget can potentially mean cutting men's swimming or just swimming in general. And it cuts out a lot of people's opportunity in athletics. There's a lot of fencers or bowlers or people that do pistol or men's volleyball players or water polo players. And a lot of times that $600,000, depending on who you are, I think Nebraska is playing UTEP $1.3 million for a 2-game series. That's a decent chunk. That's big. And it really helps boost those other athletics and keep the budget up and keep them able to keep those sports. And then it gives certain athletes a leaping ground, a jumping, a pad where they can go jump and make a different career. And it's nice for some fans, swimmers and stuff. It's nice to see NCAA championships this year were super fun to watch. And it was cool because you had a couple different teams in the MISC. You had a couple mid-majors that put swimmers in, where a lot of times they probably don't have a swim program if they're not able to play those guaranteed games where they get paid $600,000, $700,000 to go play football. So and I think that's a big thing that some people are missing right now, is that playing that non-conference game really helps other schools and other athletic programs. Not even just in the Olympic sport athletic programs, but even football and basketball, where you can then make potentially more money and just help spread the wealth around. And it's keeping that non-conference game is big for athletic programs in general. Now, of course, you can make the argument, well, maybe if they cut the conference game out, they can now go pay that other school more money. Let's say, we'll take the SEC. I think they play 4 non-conference games a year. One or two of those games are usually against weaker opponents. Maybe if they cut one of those games out, they make the SEC conference media deal bigger. Maybe you can then, an argument could be, then you could go pay that weaker opponent a little bit more, or maybe it gives the fans a better experience. But I think that keeping that non-conference game really just helps other schools, and it keeps, it can give, a program, athletic department, and it gives other athletes a chance to compete at maybe the highest level they'll ever go. There's only very few athletes ever become pro players, of course. And so it's really like having that last chance to go swim, bowl, fence, shoot, play volleyball, play softball, do gymnastics. It's really big to a lot of those people. You get that final chance to go do something, and then you're done. You're no longer an athlete like that anymore. And so keeping that non-conference game is big for a lot of those Olympic sport athletes. They don't always have a chance to really keep going. And so, yeah, I think that's part of the reason why we should keep non-conference games. This also feeds into a topic of like the Super League, which I may get into in a different video, talking about a college football Super League with only like the top 5% of schools. We're talking about Texas, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Miami, maybe Notre Dame. All these schools that are considered the top 2%, they make a huge budget, big, are good. And that's an interesting topic as well, but that's for a different time. But yeah, so I think we should keep non-conference games. This is all college football. All non-conference college football games. All these non-conference college football games. It also is interesting because then you get to see different opponents. You're not seeing the same opponent year in, year out. But that's a smaller reason, But like, it's cool when like Nebraska goes and plays Colorado, or I think we're playing USC, and we were potentially going to play Tennessee. And I suppose those are bigger schools, but it's also cool when you play that smaller school, and then it also gives those smaller school athletes a chance on the big stage. All these smaller school athletes have a chance to play in some of the biggest stadiums in front of the biggest crowds they may ever play at. And that's cool. That's cool for the athlete. It's cool for their fans because now they've got a chance to go to these places. And yeah, so we should keep non-conference games because it helps generate revenue for smaller schools. You can bring new fans into the mix at your own school for cheaper prices, and it gives athletes a chance to compete at a high level or go compete on potentially the biggest stage of their life. So, tell me what you think in the comments below. This has just been talk that I've been thinking about, especially since I've heard all about, cutting a non-conference game, cutting this type of game. And so, yeah. So please leave a like if you liked it. Leave a comment telling me your thoughts on the subject. If you didn't agree with something, if you got a different opinion, stuff like that. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I can see how many subscribers we get per video, and if we get like 5 or 10 on this, I'll be considering, I should go talk about NIL or College Football Super League or college football in general. So thank you for watching. Leave a comment down below talking about what you like. Yeah.